Hello, this is Toy Newkirk, aka Sheila from Nightmare on Elm Street 4, and you're listening to Elm Street Radio.
Happy Friday, A Nightmare on Elm Street fans. It's your host, Diandra here. And today we've got an episode that I've been waiting for 100 years. Okay, that's a little exaggeration, but for the most part, you get the idea. It's been a long time. Our special guest host today will be Ashlee Blackwell of Graveyard Shift Sisters. She's been on an earlier episode with us when we discussed Sheila. And we had mentioned in the episode that Ashlee should come back if we have Toy on. Well, dreams are coming true, no pun intended, and Ashlee is joining us today on our episode with Sheila herself, Toy Newkirk. And Toy has a lot. She's not just Sheila. She's been so influential behind the camera. She came from a family who was in the entertainment business, and I cannot wait to hear what she has to say, and I'm really looking forward to the questions and the discussion that Ashlee will have with Toy because of Ashlee's nature. If you've ever read any of her content, it's extremely in-depth, it's beautiful, and I've been following her for quite some time because of it, and so this is a special treat. Last week we had on Lisa Wilcox, who was a wonderful, wonderful guest. It was a silly little episode, but I enjoyed talking with her. Hopefully you enjoyed that as well. And you might have noticed Paige is not on with me right now. Truth be told, we do record these episodes through Skype, and Skype is a fussy little bugger. Skype tends to provide some problems when there's too many people on at once. And so it's just going to be Ashlee, Toy, and myself today, but I do wish that Paige could join us. I'm looking into other options for recording so that we can have multiple guests on, more than 3, and kind of keep track and make things just a smidgen easier there for you. Next week is Flashback Weekend, and I'm going to be there. Paige will not be there again, but she will be at Scarefest. That's happening at the end of September, early October. So you can see both of us there, but I will be there next week. And I hope you will come say hi, and I hope you have a truly excellent time at the show. It looks to just be filled to the brim with A Nightmare on Elm Street. Well, as we had talked about with Ashlee before, Sheila is an influential character in A Nightmare on Elm Street. She has been somebody who's not really the norm. And, Rennie Harlan had wanted her to be kind of pretty stereotypical. They wanted her to ADR and overdub her lines because she just sounded like a normal, nerdy girl that was, to be expected of a nerdy girl. But the fact that her skin color was Black, he thought that, coming from a different culture, she should sound a different way, and maybe that audiences wouldn't be so receptive. Well, pleasantly surprised we are, he is, hopefully, and much to our delight, Sheila has been extremely well received by people of all colors, shapes, and sizes as even though she was only in A Nightmare on Elm Street 4 for a little bit, she really stands out as a character that we really look up to and cherish, and her feisty little nature, and she's the brains, and she had the killer physics test, and she had asthma, and she rode a little scooter, and she's just so wonderful, and she's the perfect representation of how somebody who we wish could be on screen a little bit longer can leave such an impact on people many, many years later. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what we're going to be talking about with Toy and with Ashlee. And without further ado, let's go ahead and head to Elm Street to meet the one and only Toy Newkirk.
I wonder where he works out. Save the death. I mean, there is life after exercise. One of these days, I'm going to set you up with a real guy. Teach you to get your priorities straight. No. I think Sheila's more interested in dissecting bodies and looking at the outside. Oh, give her time. Give her time. Her hormones will kick in someday. Dad, later in life, you're going to appreciate my motto. What's that? Mind over matter.
You know her as one of the most standout, quirky, and I definitely believe, and I know Ashlee agrees, influential characters of A Nightmare on Elm Street and cinema, Toy Newkirk. Welcome to Elm Street Radio, Toy.
Wow, hello. what an intro. Hi.
All true, all true. And
Hi, Ashlee.
Hello. Hi, Toy.
well, I know that when I had Ashlee on, that we had discussed having her as a special guest on when we eventually have the privilege of getting you on Elm Street Radio, and things worked out, and I'm so excited to get you guys to talk to each other, because it was Sheila who I have really followed Ashlee through, and really kind of discovered her through her love of Sheila, and I've just admired it, and I could see that in every single bit of her work every day.
That's really awesome. Oops, sorry about that. I found, Ashlee, remember, I found your piece. Someone sent it to me. I know you wrote it years ago.
Yeah.
And I just received it, I want to say within the past 6 months, and I immediately reached out. I was like, who is this? Like, who, deconstructed and understood that time better than I actually did. And it kind of gave me great pause and great elation at the same time, because, I myself hadn't really thought about it to that degree outside of just living it, knowing, that there wasn't this other representation out there. But again, I wasn't anything thought about intentionally. And then when I saw your piece, I immediately had to reach out to you. And I don't know if you even remember, but I was just like, this is amazing. Who are you? And I was just thrilled by the piece, because for me, it opened up a whole nother talking point that I'd never even considered on such a deconstructed level, of really getting into, well, what was really missing for me as a child and as a child actor. And to see that piece, it just kind of all came together in this, hindsight 2020 type of clarity. And I was so appreciative of you doing that work and really kind of investigating it in that manner. And then it gave me a new voice. So for that, I was just thrilled.
Oh, that is an honor to hear from you. This is really surreal for me, because, like I said before with Diandra and Paige, it was kind of this idea, I was this little Black girl who loved horror. So I already felt weird. And then I wore glasses and I felt kind of nerdy. And then I see you play this character on screen at such a young and impressionable age. And it was kind of the catalyst for me to kind of continue this work. And it kind of spiraled into, this piece that I wrote years ago. And I'm so sorry. I really don't remember, because I'm not on Facebook personally, so I don't remember the reach out. Which really bums me out, because I feel like that's something that I totally would have remembered. Yeah. But that character is just so profound and so impactful for me and a lot of other people, doing this work. I wrote that years ago, and, having the platform that I have now that I was able to build, luckily, I saw, there were so many other Black women coming out of the woodworks who felt the exact same way, who were like, oh my God, I love Sheila growing up. And then there's a lot of Black men saying, Sheila was cool, man. Everyone just, we felt this camaraderie, because it's so rare to see characters of color in this genre that we love so much. And then you were such a standout because you weren't this caricature or stereotype. And a lot of us gravitated toward that. And
wow. I just didn't know. And, what are we talking? 1988. And I do remember this, and maybe you'll appreciate this story. I was about 16 years old, so maybe 2 years before filming this movie. And I remember I called up my agent, and I was like, all my friends in the theater group, outside of, I went to the Inglewood Playhouse, and my mom brought me there every single year since I was 5 years old, so that I could have that theater influence, but amongst my people and amongst people that look like me, so I didn't feel any different growing up. And so it was with Chip Fields, Kim Fields' mother, and Malcolm Jamal Warner was in it. And this is before, I mean, we were all just me between the ages of like, you know, I want to say 8 and 14. And so that was my weekend acting, which I just really loved because culturally it allowed me to just connect and be. And we were raised in a predominantly, because my dad worked in a predominantly white area. So my mom from Baltimore and from the inner city, and she was an activist, and my uncle marched with Martin Luther King. So it was very intentional for her to keep us rooted and understanding all walks of life, but primarily culturally my walk of life, which is being a Black woman. And so very happy that she instilled that. And so I remember, though, I had other acting classes, as we do, and it was predominantly white. And I remember I would hear a lot of the actresses saying, oh yeah, I'm going up for this 90210, or I'm going up for, you know, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and all those movies or TV shows that were big, I guess, around that time, maybe even younger. I don't remember them. And I remember saying, well, can I go out on that? And my agent was like, well, no, they're specifically asking for this type. And I was like, well, you know what? I don't care. Can you just send my picture into everyone? Just even if they say they want a little white boy, let me just go and have them say no. And I booked 90210, Days of Our Lives, all because they weren't roles that were written for quote unquote Black characters. They were just characters, and they were kind of like, oh, my agent pushed me that way by saying, hey, she just wants to audition. She knows that she probably won't get the part, but she just wants to try all types of characters. And I ended up booking a lot of those roles, not because they requested them, and it was even written in the script. And so for me, I didn't realize, I knew when I was young that my pickings were limited, and I wanted to do more work than I was offered and or afforded to do. And so, you know, by the time Nightmare came along, I didn't realize, you know, I think I knew intuitively that there was, you know, an opportunity here to have fun and play something close to my bone, which is the nerdy girl, which is the very, you know, kind of haphazardly nerdy at that. You know, I put my foot in my mouth a lot. I think a lot. If I think a lot, then I say a lot. And when I say a lot, I just speak from my heart. And sometimes that doesn't go over well. As I'm getting older, I'm learning how to process that. But as a young girl, so landing Nightmare was kind of one of those like, oh, great, I get to be this studious, but I didn't want to be Urkel, you know?
Yeah.
But I could play around with, you know, my brother, my eldest brother, who has since passed away, but he was alive during the time. He was in med school at USC, a biology major. And so he was always the brainiac of our family. So when I got the role, I was like, look, Ricky, I can be like you, you know? And he, so it was an interesting time. And I didn't realize, like I said, when we began this piece, that how it would impact even my own life in doing so. Yeah.
So that brings me to a fan question from a gentleman by the name of Troy Kingsbury, and he said, outside of you you get to play this nerdy girl, and did you have any particular direction that you were set in? Troy asks, outside of your performance choices, did you have any opportunities to add a personal contribution to your character, or were you limited by the nature of the production?
Interesting. Well, you know, we were on strike. So the writers were on strike rather. So the script was definitely altered by a lot of the actors. Andros and Lisa and Danny really were able to play around with that. I was able, I want to say no, to be very honest. I was not able to add any more than what was given. And to be very honest, I was written out of two different scenes. And I was written out with under the guise that, well, Sheila wouldn't be here. She would be at the library studying. So, you take everything with a grain of salt and you just keep moving along. And so those 3 scenes I think I have, or maybe 4, one long scene, was really a shortened version from the original script. So from that, it kind of was, I had always been trained, no matter what character you do, build a background, something you're never ever going to see on, as far as have the knowledge of, I was like, what is Springfield to me? Where do I live? And it was really similar to where I lived growing up with my parents. So I started to write the backstory on her just for myself. And then as we got into filming, we had a really quick schedule. I want to say we only worked like 42 days or even less maybe. And a lot of that was going through special effects. To answer Troy's question, which is a really great question, I wish I would have been a little bit more free to dive in, as opposed to feeling like, oh, wow, this is really cool. I'm doing a movie, and really kind of grab the bull by the horns, yeah. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's interesting because I was going to get into, everyone who's an Elm Street fan has pretty much seen the Never Sleep Again documentary. So I kind of wanted to know, in regards to the film, like in regards to the doc, like what wasn't in the film? What did you talk about with, the people that were interviewing you during the time? What did you talk about that didn't get put into the final cut? Like, are there any other interesting stories you can share about the set?
Yeah, that's really funny. I was working, I've now transitioned into behind the camera, and I was working in New York at the time, and I got a call from Tommy Hudson saying, hey, everyone's doing this documentary, and would you mind doing it? And I said, no, absolutely not. It's, Nightmare hadn't really been on my radar. I hadn't gone to any conventions, maybe just one. So I didn't realize the cult following that was there. And so I, went to 57th Street, and they had some green screen, and some guy was asking me questions, but he wasn't making eye contact with me. So I thought, okay, this is very strange. Just look at me so I can engage with you. And so long story short, I have never seen the documentary. And yet I've heard a whole lot of backlash from it in regards to the Rennie Harlan comment. Now, to be very honest, I'm sure I shared it, and I don't remember. And I'm sure I shared a lot more that made the documentary, but that seems to have been the focal point of it. And but I think that goes back to Troy's question as far as feeling free to improvise and or add. I was already feeling kind of a little pressed to just fight for the mere sense of just being a girl who happens to be highly intelligent and is accepted in the cool gang, because most nerds aren't even accepted into the cool crowd. So I was working off of that with no particular race attached to it. Although, of course, I'm Black. You can see, I know, I live it, I breathe it, I see it. So I was just really trying to explore life without that on top of it. And I know, so the story that was in the documentary was pretty much, Rennie asked me to be more Black. And I understood where he was coming from, another culture, another country totally, which I wasn't as offended with it as I was, let me educate. And that was, because we're Black does not mean that everyone speaks Ebonics. And because the script is written in such a way that she's this intelligent, then she, of course, would just speak your environment. And if my environment is books and equations, and thus the nerd is actually, created in that sense. And it's not because, you want to be a nerd, you just know too much, or you don't want, but it certainly wasn't about being street. Although, like I said to Rennie, I don't have a problem doing that, but give me a reason to do that. And nothing ever added up to that. I don't know if they talked about, this was an ongoing thing. It even went to our ADR, which is our voiceover session. Did they speak about that in the documentary? I don't know.
I feel like they did. I feel like there was like a passing comment about you redoing your lines in the documentary. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they had asked me if Rennie was kind of like, I need you to redo them. And look, it wasn't my best work ever, no, but I was 18, and I'm happy that I was able to lay down some work. Because for me, it was all work, is being able to exercise what we do as actors, which is just kind of authentically, how authentic can you be living in a world outside of what but now this is you because you are that character. And so any type of role, I appreciate it. So outside of that, behind the scenes, I'll let you know. I don't know if they talked about this in the documentary, but one thing about Rennie, which I thank him to this day for, is we all, to this day, are really good friends. And I do believe that started because 2 weeks or 3 weeks before we started filming, we all got together. He put us together. And we subsequently became friends because we weren't always shooting the same days together. We would have never have known each other or even had any type of camaraderie if it wasn't for those first initial days of us meeting and having barbecues and sitting there talking and really just becoming friends. And Rodney came and stayed with me in New York, and I lived up in Seattle and saw Andras, and Lisa and I are old roommates from I came back to LA and moved with her and lived moved into her house and lived with her for a year. So and Brooke and her daughter. So we're all really authentically really good friends, and I think from that it was a really cool experience that we get to take and move forward. What other cool things? For me, the best part was the special effects. And we had to go through plaster. I had to go through a full body cast and a head cast. And
wow.
And so they had put garbage, this plastic garbage bag type taped to my body. And then they poured plaster all over me. And so they did my torso first. They did my arms and my hands. And then they had to do my head. And I was like, well, how are we going to do that? And they're like, it's going to feel claustrophobic, but you're just going to have to get through it. We need you to stay under there for 10 minutes. And I thought, okay, yeah, I could do that. And they put the cast on me, and they have little straws coming out of my nostrils and little straws out of the corner of my mouth. But remember, my mouth is wide open when he goes to kiss me. Mm-hmm. So all the plaster was inside of my mouth as well.
Oh my God.
So I could only breathe through my nose. And I was at one point I thought, oh my God, they don't care if I die just as long as they get this cast made. And then they're like, well, we're going to take, Toy, just be really still. We have a saw at the back of your head, and we're going to saw it off with a real,
oh my
saw.
Goodness.
And I was sitting there going, get the hell out of here. But it ended up great. And I wish I would have kept that cast. They offered it to me. And I just no, it's okay. Yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. But yeah, that was cool. And then riding the moped, of course, I had, because it was a real Vespa, they sent me to Vespa school for a week. Cool. And I learned how to.
It's amazing.
Yeah. So I was just all geeked out on that, because I'm look at me, I'm riding I'm really mod, I'm riding a Vespa. So yeah, those are some good moments for sure.
That is such a cool story. I love that Vespa scene with Sheila and Debbie when you come in and you guys have that banter back and forth. Since it was the writer's script, was a lot of that scripted, or did you guys have a chance to kind of work on that yourselves?
We played a little bit with it. I know the gentleman who says to us, what are you sucking on the wrong nozzle? I know that was part of the script. I know Brooke and we instantly hit it off. We shared a dressing room. We were the same age. And actually, we had just graduated from high school. And, we just had our prom. And when I was showing her my prom pictures in the dressing room, and she was showing me her prom pictures, we had the same exact dress. We didn't know each other, but we bought the same exact dress for our proms like months earlier. So that was kind of cool. It's like a year earlier, let me say. And so why did I get off track? What was it? I'm so sorry.
I was talking about the improv, like if there was any improv in the scene with you and Brooke with the sucking on the wrong nozzle, which is weird for me to say.
So I think we played around with that a lot, and that's why we were really just kind of laughing, because we just thought, what a silly little line. And then also technical problems. The Vespa wasn't working. And it wasn't spitting out enough smoke. So there was a lot of things that we were working around. I think we did that drive up so many times. It's like, it's not enough smoke. It's not smoking at all. I almost hit Brooke one time. I almost took myself out. So it was just this constant. So by the time we got the lines out playfully, it felt good. We felt very comfortable with each other. And that was actually our first scene together. This is my first scene being shot, was that scene with her. And we were all at Venice High School. And actually, that's where they shot Grease, the movie.
Oh,
okay. Venice High. And we were there as well. And I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I'm trying to think about, I haven't seen the movie. I need to watch it in a little while. But, I think, we kind of went off script. A lot of us, I didn't have that many lines to go off script to begin with. And then, whoever I was with during the time, if it was really good chemistry, then we would just roll with it. And that was mainly Brooke and Lisa. Those are the two actors that I interact with the most in the movie. And then we did some B-roll shoots with all of us, like hanging around the fountain or at the movie theater, or all those where we had some time where we were together. But for the most part, I could hear, for instance, Ken Sagos doing his scene, because we're in a really big hangar out in Valencia, and it was a made sound stage. So we were all be there filming, but we had different units filming us at the same time. So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome.
So yeah, I feel like we're all over the place, but we'll just this conversation's so great. I was interested in, your father having working in the business for so long, and just for people in general, because people know you as Sheila, but what was it kind of like growing up with a father who was in the movie business, and your general background.
Yeah, so my dad is an engineer by trade, and him and my mom met when they were like 16 or 17 years old in Baltimore, and they both had, a plan: go to college, graduate, get married, and have a great life. And they had my two older brothers and my eldest sister, and moved out to California. I wasn't even they conceived yet, and so while he was here working for Lockheed and Boeing, he actually, he had a great mind. And he, for himself during that time, he put himself through college. He's a hardworking man who was 100% going to be there for his family, but he was up against a lot of strife. And, again, my parents were very open with, feel very good with where you are. Be humbled always. and know that this is a gift that you must go further than us. So it was just a fluke where, I used to dance in front of the television at like 3 years old saying, I want to do this, and start mimicking, all the latest TV actors on TV. And my mom and dad were like, no, absolutely not. And then my father then got a job at CBS Studios or Universal Studios. It was, kind of like a listing saying it was during where they were, taking diversity training, and they needed to bring a lot more African Americans into the business because there hadn't been. It was early 70s. And he went in there, and because he's an engineer, cameras seemed to work with his mind well. And he quickly became a really successful cameraman. He was really the only Black man on the crew. And because of his experiences, he didn't want me anywhere near the industry. And so when I went on my first audition at 5, only my mom was taking me to an agent just to shut me up, to say, see, it's really hard and you're not going to get anything. She didn't tell my dad. And I ended up getting that commercial, the Tide commercial. And my dad, we didn't tell him. We didn't tell him at all. I remember it was like for a while. And then he started to find out, that I was doing, he never watched TV and he was always working. So my big thing was I just wanted to go hang out on set and watch him do what he does. And because he was on the camera crew, on the crane, I was able to be up there in the mix. And really, one thing he had asked me is, Toy, if you want to do this, you have to do this on your own. Please, you can come to set. You can do all you want. You're my daughter. I love you. I want you to see it. But don't ask, not that he said, but don't ask me for help, because that's not if you want to do this, then you have to go after it on your own. And I was like, okay, that's fair enough. Just let me come to set. Let me sit and watch you. Let me, watch you guys do what you do and make a movie. And so by the time I was like 6 or 7, I was hanging out with, he was on Bionic Woman at the time, and then $6 Million Man, and then started doing movies in the 80s, like, he did Bugsy and Color Purple and Batteries Not Included. And so I would just go live on set with him. And my mom would allow me. She would have to be there to pick him up. So I said, let's go earlier, right after school, and if I had time. And everyone just really was great to me. And so I was able to understand the dynamics of a shoot and yet watch these actors really get into some work with 100 people standing around them. Like, I was like, how are they doing that? Like, that's amazing. And then I was able to see like some great directors like Barry Levinson and Steven Spielberg, and just by proxy. And I never asked them for anything. I was just kind of really honored just to sit there and go to school, go to work, learn. And learn how a script is written, learn what the writers are doing, learn what they're pulling cable over there. Why are you paying? So I would be asking the crew members and writers a great deal of questions. And they're like, who is this little girl? And I'm like, I'm Reggie's daughter, and I just want to know, why are you doing that? And I was just a bucket full of questions my whole life. It's always been a why. And so it was a great influence, and yet it wasn't anything that was going to ultimately help, quote unquote, my career. But you see, I'm the baby of the family, and I had 2 older brothers who were star athletes. So they were being written up in the newspaper, or they were being interviewed. So it allowed me really just to kind of fly under the radar and just do it for fun. Like, there was never any pressure that I had to do it or had to make it or had to make money, or, my mom would just say, either you can go on this audition, you can go to your softball, you can go to your dance class, but you have to do something after school. You have to be a part of something. You can't sit around the house, and you can't hang out with the kids in the neighborhood. That was her whole thing. Just, you had to do something. So my dad was okay with that. And so we were pretty focused at a young age, but I certainly wasn't the superstar of the family, that's for sure.
Wow. So did that inspire you to do more behind the scenes stuff? Now, I remember you from A Different World and a little part that you had on Living Single. Like these are like I remember seeing your face and getting all geeked out because oh my God, that's Sheila. But yeah, but I also noticed that you do a lot of behind the scenes stuff. So, hearing that story, it seems like wow. So I wonder if that was the kind of the catalyst for what you're doing now.
That's interesting. I think so. I think it was always like, if the chip was implanted, that's when it was. And I loved acting. I hated the struggle of it. And that was just real.
Yeah.
But I loved the doing the actual work outside of all the other BS that surrounds it. I just love being in there. So that was, like I was saying earlier, far and few between. It's why I went to so many different acting classes or theater classes. It's just because I didn't have a lot of opportunity to actually do it and make a quote unquote living out of it. I so badly wanted to book a series. I so badly wanted Living Single to say, "You're great, stay on." It never happened,
Yeah.
And then at some point, my brother passed. So I was on A Different World, and so I was 21 at the time, and my brother passed away. And it was a big shock to me. And he was diagnosed with cancer, and it was 3 months, and he was gone. And that 3-month period, I had just booked my very first reoccurring role on A Different World. And I was thrilled, but I was not focused, and I did not know how to do both. And family for us is everything. Like, we're raised knowing that we've got each other, and that's how our ethos were growing up. And so Debbie Allen had been really pushing me to kind of like step up. Like, she really wanted me to. And I just didn't have it in me. And they fired me and they let me go. And it was devastating because, one thing my brother loved was laying he was in the hospital, and he would lay in bed and watch the shows on air, and I'd lay with him, and I'd drive out there on a Thursday night and just make sure we were together. And so that bummed me out more than really losing the job, although that's all I ever wanted my entire life was a sitcom, because I love comedy. I think it's funny being goofy. I think it's funny being, I love comedy. So that bummed me out. And after that experience, I did a couple of more little side movies, but I had just lost the zing of it. And I'll tell you, there's a story. I was up for a movie. It was like a Jackie Brown type of role. And we were down to our final, very prominent African-American actresses at that time. And I was in the room with them. And I'm like, okay, this is cool. It's like 5 of us. This is great. I can get this. I can get down with that. And I thought I just knocked it out of the park. And unfortunately, I didn't. And they let us know there that who actually got the role. And she's gone on to major success. And I was happy for her. But I was so bummed. And I left, and I was crying. I was crying, walking off set. And I ran into an old producer who had produced me when I was younger. And he's like, "Why are you crying?" I'm like, "I have no control over my life. I as much as I work hard, and there's only few pickings of some really good juicy roles, and I'm tired of trying to play the hooker or the side chick or the the nasty skank, because that's all they were really writing at the time. Like, Hollywood Shuffle was so right on, and I was over it, and it just was defeating. I said, "I just need to be able," and I'm like, "Look, I write, I can direct, I was born in this industry." And he's like, "All right, well, come meet me." And I ended up working over at Quentin Tarantino's production company. I never met him, but that's how I started producing. He gave me a gig. I started out as a PA, and then I went to a coordinator, and then a manager, and then a line producer, and then started to produce my own. So I literally, again, like my father had said, I worked my way up. And I had fortunate to have known that producer to allow me to segue over. But, it was back to, I was on the other side. And so there wasn't any fawning or over toy, because it wasn't about me. It was about everyone else. And that felt really comfortable. Finally, I felt myself in my skin going, wait, I can think about this project as a totality, as a creative from, I had to hire the art department or the writers, and then we just kind of would sit and banter on copy what, whether it be General Motors or Ford, or what is their messaging and how are we going to, the optics of getting that commercial across and or music video. And then from there, I just kind of fell into MTV, and I kind of, and I still haven't landed where I want to be. I took 3 years off, and I've been writing my own scripts now, and we'll see where the fates have me, but I'll always be dancing around this business in some sense. I love it too much, right?
That's so great to hear. I mean, you answered my question because I was going to ask you what it was like being an actress, especially in the 1980s. But, there's a lot of buzz now about, for example, like Queen Sugar and how Ava DuVernay is, in particular, bringing on women of color to direct and do and work behind the scenes. And I was going to ask you, have you really seen has there been a change? And are you excited about it or just your general thoughts? Yeah,
I am really excited about it. I wish I could get into that scripted world, you see, because I went so far in commercials and reality television and doing that work that it kind of got me off track of where I really love, which is scripted. And so I'm actually back out saying, hey, here's my work, my body of work. I know this world, but I really want to go down this path. Documentaries really get me off, though. That's my telling someone's true story. I love that part of me, and I love this part of having conversations with you all and kind of picking someone's mind. So with that being said, I would love to move in that direction. I will say it's been as equally hard, not until recently being, past 3 or 4 years, it seems to be getting better. But up to that point, I really had to scrap and fight, and not verbally fight, but really have some solid fortitude of understanding who I am. Because, here's a great story. When I was an executive producer for a show. I don't want to say the network, but it was a big network and it was a big show. And I was going to go meet with some technical people about doing graphics, and it's a big, big show, a lot of money. And I brought my associate producer along, pretty little white girl, and it was great. I loved working with her. And we walked in the room and they immediately started to address her. And I was like, and she was very uncomfortable, and she's looking at me and she's like, oh, she's the executive. And I saw the moment, it's just a moment of, oh, and then we continue on. But it's those moments of when they speak to me on the phone and then see me in person, somehow the two don't equate, which, I always say that's their problem. But in that, I do recognize that, it's being a woman in this industry, being a filmmaker in this industry, and being a woman's already tough enough. And then you add on, the being an African-American woman, and not seeing a lot of us behind the camera. Now, with that said, I have hired full crews of just all women, and I love it. And that's all races, but all women crews. Once in a while, there's been a couple of male shooters because there's not a lot of female camera people out there. But I think that's changing quickly.
Yeah.
But that's always been. And then really, I did I have not seen. I had a crew of 50, and I want to say about 20 of us were Black women. Wow. And so. Wow. That was powerful. And I love being able to influence that way. And some of these women have gone on to be great writers, directors. And so I don't know where my segue in life is, but I'm definitely at the transitional period right now. I think when I was just like, well, it's time to write your own stories. And so, I still have to make a living. So I still take gigs, and work.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But there's my side hope and prayer that there would be some messaging out there that's going to hit and be necessary when the time comes. I'm open to that. Yeah.
We had Lisa Wilcox on last week for Elm Street Radio, and in the very beginning, probably about a month ago, we had on Amanda West, and we both times had brought up the impact of, you know, needing more women in the spotlight and more women doing and more stories about women and the importance of it and the different stories that are out there for the different kinds of women that are not yet being told. So it just listening to your story is so inspiring, even from the very beginning. Your parents instilling in you such hard work and your willingness to learn and to want and to do and to continue doing and to finding your own way. It almost makes me like get really teary-eyed because I think that's so beautiful, and it's so, oh, here it comes, because I think that's so beautiful, and it's so important for people, especially people of all different colors, shapes, sizes, and ages, to just know that, you know, they can and they should and they need to be heard.
Yeah. And there's so many stories out there, and, you know, God bless the industry, but, you know, there's only so many comic, you know, or there's only so many movies you can do without, you know, digging a little bit deeper into society and finding the climate of today and really presenting it in a way that is truthful. I think, you know, our only obstacle is financing, right? Like, who's going to buy your script? And without financing, you can write, there's brilliant work out there and never will ever be seen. And so, you know, that brings me to, I've been thinking about, that's a whole nother, that's an undeveloped thought, but you ladies have made me start thinking about, you know, because I take shows out and I pitch them all the time, you know, but I have that, for reality, I have that opening to do it. But I don't know anyone who would actually take my script. Well, that's not true, but I've never gone down that avenue. And I just think that it feels like it's getting better, but with the climate of where we are right now with 2017, it's a little rocky because, you know, there's the cracks are showing and something needs to be fixed. And I think ideologies and beliefs that are really limiting us as a society, as humans, are really. It seems like there's a battle going on right now, and I just really hope that my dream is that we aren't talking about women and African American women, and that it's just a norm that we're out there being powerhouses. And there's a lot of groups like Women in Film, a lot of greats, you know, that I belong to. Women in reality film. I mean, there's just a lot of really great groups of women who are working and doing it hard and doing it well. And I'm finding out in a lot of these groups, they're helping each other either get jobs or editing jobs or cameraman jobs or sound jobs that usually go to men. A lot of women are really kind of jumping into those roles right now. And I think it's because of the sisterhood of like women saying, you know what, I love men. This is not about bashing a man, but I really love the opportunity to work with really intelligent, creative women and hear their voices without, you know, the nuanced of, well, she's just a girl, or, you know, well, it's just, you know, we will take someone else's opinion if it's a male. I'll tell you, here's a funny story. I was working and I'm not going to say it, but I was working a gig and I had offered a suggestion around the creative writing room, and it got poo-pooed like most, you know, ideas do. You have to have thick skin, right? And so I'm like, okay, whatever. And I kid you not, 10 minutes later, this guy said the same exact thing I said, verbatim. And they said, that's great. Let's run with it.
Oh my God.
Oh my God.
I said, there it is. You know, that's what it is. And so it's such a nuanced fight, you know, it feels like an invisible one.
Yes.
And so there's, you know, I don't want to be the person that has walking around going, well, I couldn't because I'm a woman, or I didn't because they didn't allow a Black woman, or I could, like, those words don't come to my mind. It's, I can do it. I will do it. I don't know how, but I swear I will. And at this point, tomorrow's my birthday and I'm older and I'm feeling, another change is about to come. I feel it. It's in my bones. It's circling around me. And being a very spiritual person, I just know transition for me has become easier, and I purge myself of any expectations. And I'm trying to live an intentional life so that although I do hurt people, it's not my intent. And but I think that there are more opportunities for women. It's just about finding them and being able to give the opportunity.
So I guess you can say Sheila's line, mind over matter, really is very true to you.
And there you said it. That's awesome. Yeah.
That's so amazing. I do have one Facebook comment that was left for you, Toy. It's from Kenneth Alexander Wright Vasquez. And he says, Toy was my favorite Elm Street kid and the most interesting of them all. I could so relate to her because in my preteens, I was all about that science. Her power allowed Alice to use intellect as well as muscle over Freddie. Would love for her to write a memoir of her experience.
Oh, wow. Memoir of my experience. You never say never. And I could actually, that would be an interesting ride for myself to take. Yeah, why not? I could. It's funny, ladies. When I booked this movie, I just didn't think 30 years from then we would be having these great discussions on who Sheila was and how she represented a greater invisible kind of part of society. And so, maybe I should look back. I am writing a memoir. Well, it's based on a kind of true story script, and it is about, and our heroine is a little Black girl who grew up in Studio City, we were talking about during the 70s when, porn was rampant in the Valley, and everyone was loose and free and very surfery, and yet I was still a little Black girl who, when I turned 14, I ran a stop sign on my bicycle because we were riding through the streets, and I was with a group of girls who I'm still friends with to this day, and they all blew through the stop sign, but the cop pulled me over and gave me the ticket. And it haunted me because when I turned 16, I already had a ticket and I couldn't get my driver's license. So it was really a weird time growing up. So I'd love to write from that vision because it was a really quirky time as well, because there were so many people that didn't think that way. And so it was really just little moments, tidbits of reminders. But for the most part, growing up in the Valley and being a little Valley girl in my skin was a quite interesting ride. And that's like Tiffany Hill and Tiffany Harrison. They're my two Tiffanys, only my two Black girlfriends. And we hung tight and thick and hard. And we're still friends to this day. But so, yes, I would write a memoir. And I would love to tap back in to the Elm Street Sheila. It's funny. I look nowadays at the young women and the opportunities and the different, characters you have out there. Your Afrocentric, your big hair, your dreadlocks, the straight hair. I mean, there seems to be a plethora of different types of women, African American. I speak to that mainly. And I just think, gosh, it'd be interesting to get back to acting right now. As at my age of what I know, it'd be fun to go play around. And at the same time, I kind of want to revisit through this young girl's eyes, Southern California, kind of like a Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but through a Black woman's eyes.
That would be amazing.
That's awesome.
Right? Wouldn't that be fun? Because, there's certain, and then I would go to Inglewood and it would be a totally different world, and that's what gave me my balance of understanding who I was.
I know Black Twitter would love that. Just letting you know.
There's a Black Twitter?
Yes, it's kind of this it's kind of this thing that Twitter has a large Black user rate. So, and they've kind of have this, they congregate, we develop our own hashtag for certain things, television and movies, and we kind of talk about issues that are pertinent to Black people and Black culture.
Fun. Okay. I'm not on Twitter. Someone stole my Twitter name years ago, and I don't know who it is, but they have my Twitter account, but I need to get on as like a different name. I will. That I haven't been on.
Ashlee has really been a front runner for everything. I see everybody always so inspired. It's true. I'm going to pump you up. You know, I do it every time I talk to you.
Goodness gracious.
Do it.
That, you just the subjects you talk about, it really brings things into light. And, purging the Black, female horror fan from the margins. I mean, it just says it right there. And everything you do, it's so much like you and Toy, I'm going to say it, have so much similarities in fighting, in doing, in bringing certain things to light. And it's people like you who change the way that the world works.
Yeah, because I was going to say the Toy, I feel like a lot of us feel that way, especially as artists. I struggle every day trying to navigate making a living, but also trying to balance that out with wanting to make what I've created into something that is financially substantial. And it's really difficult. And I do recognize that, there are struggles when it comes to being a Black woman in this country. But I never let it stop me. I'm always pushing forward and being persistent. And I think a lot of us, especially a lot of us Black females who are creatives, we struggle. But we want to support each other because it's just like, just don't give up because you're so talented. Don't do it,
God, and that's it right there. God, I lost you had said something really brilliant. Damn, I lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. But it was about the whole don't struggle and don't give up. And I will say there is a constant daily battle with their stance of don't give up. Look, I would post on Facebook a great deal politically and speak my mind openly, and I lost thousands of followers, which was fine because I don't make a living at being it didn't affect my pockets, so to speak. But it really was an eye-opening experience this past, 2 or 3 years, just kind of being very vocal and coming into my own with social media and just kind of blogging and talking and logging as much as I could on what my thoughts were around a certain subject. And the vitriol, I did not realize how many people it would affect in a negative, but then I just didn't pay attention because there was the people like you and some great, still to this day, great followers who continue to send me insightful, motivational, move forward, we can do it, and I think that's that fortitude you kind of have to have. I know we're coming up on our hour, so I don't really want to start a new subject, but no one really knows this, but I had a brain aneurysm happen.
Oh, dear. God.
And I thought that was it. I thought my life was over. And by the grace of God and technology, I've got some, coils and stuff in my head, and I'm now still living. And that has given me a whole new profound perspective on why am I here? And I don't believe it's limited. And I do think it's all encompassing. But I do know what the one focal point is. I'm a really good metronome of love. I'm a really good promoter. I'm a really good champion of go, go, go. I believe in you. And so I don't know where and how that's going to manifest itself out there into the world. But if I can bring this full circle back to you, Ashlee, and the piece you wrote, I think that type of insightful mind that you do have allowed me to really look back on something that I put away and never had any real context to speak on it about. I knew there was something that was wrong. I knew there was something that bothered me. I knew it was something I struggled with. But it wasn't until I read your beautiful piece to say, oh, wow, isn't that interesting? And so it gave me a whole new light. And so I think it's going to, and, Dan, it's going to be all of us women really kind of loving on each other no matter what, and really kind of promoting each other in a way that you would only do blood. And I think out of that are going to come some really great work if there already hasn't already happened,
That's a beautiful, beautiful note to kind of, because we are coming up on an hour and I don't want to keep you, and it's been an insightful conversation. I love it. And I know it's not going to stop here because Ashlee, do you want to tell her?
Tell me.
I will be at Flashback Weekend in Chicago.
Get out of here. Come to the party with me. Are you going to be there, Diandra?
I will be there, yeah.
Okay, so there's a big party apparently, so we're all going to go. Come. There's some VIP something party and watching the movie, and you two come be with us. Yes.
That sounds fabulous.
So you'll be at Flashback. Where else will people be able to find you or your work in the near future?
Okay, so I'm also going to be in Liverpool in October, and then there's another one that I just signed up. I don't know where I'm going to be for that. In the meantime, I've been getting a lot of requests for, different to see my work or to get autographs signed, and so I'm setting up a website. But as far as my work that I do, which is behind the scenes, I'm currently working on a show, and God willing, we will deliver, and it will go on air. I mean, I've worked on a couple of shows where we've delivered and then it's never gone on air, so we'll see. But really, primarily, I'm really focused on writing, directing, producing right now. And if an opportunity comes up, I definitely would hop in front of the camera. I think it would be the best me yet, to be very honest.
Well, I would love to see that for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, Toy, and to you, Ashlee, for being our special guest today. And we look forward to seeing you at Flashback.
This is so awesome. All right, ladies. Ashlee, thank you so much for taking the time. And Diandra, I appreciate you so much for having me on.
Yes, thank you both so much.
Okay, ladies. Have a great day.
That was amazing.
I have been grinning from ear to ear for the past hour. This is surreal to me. It's just ridiculous. I'm so happy.
I have been waiting to hear you guys talk back and forth for a while, and she was so enthusiastic, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, and she had so many amazing stories. The things I didn't even think, I was like, wow, this is going to be so fun. I can't wait for everyone to hear it, because she said some really profound things and just kind of went all over the map about her career and also Elm Street. It was just amazing.
She did. She really has quite a story that, I will admit that I'm not all that familiar with the in-depth nature of her story, but hearing how she was raised and how her dad was like, you got to do this yourself, and hearing her be so enthusiastic to go and do it and to submit, her name and her face in for parts that were not necessarily written for her is incredible. And like I said in the episode, that idea of mind over matter is incredibly true to Toy herself. I can't believe that.
Absolutely. Yeah. I wouldn't even think that, actresses were doing that, just looking, as a Black woman and growing up in the 80s. I was a kid in the 80s. I wasn't, my coming of age story happened in the 90s, but in the 1980s, I was still a little kid. So I'm still very impressionable and kind of looking for those images and looking for like different images, like I've said before on here. And so, yeah, I knew just as a young person, just being a consumer of media, like not seeing like a lot of, especially Black women actresses get a lot of opportunities, especially ones who wanted to were straying from that stereotypical fold. And so so hearing that story was, sadly affirming, but at the same time hearing her say, but no, I'm still persevering and I'm still out here going for different things. It was just that was like, okay, that was kind of the motivator for, I feel like, a lot of people who are in this space of kind of struggling between wanting to pursue something that where the odds are against them and just going for it anyway. And that's so inspiring.
I completely, absolutely agree with you. And I know that she's not really done a whole lot of conventions, so people who go and talk to her, I hope that, not to discredit anybody, because she hasn't had a chance to go and to talk a lot about Elm Street, but I really hope that people will go up to her and even at panels, and they will hear that deeper side of Toy that we've had the privilege of hearing tonight. And I hope more people will interview her. And, I wish her the best in everything she does in the future, because like I said, it's people like you and her who really make the world different, and everybody helps them, succeed.
Me too. I was always kind of bummed that, just subconsciously thinking she, like, just never seeing her at conventions. And then, you brought this up to me that she was going to be at Flashback. And I was just like, at first I was a little discouraged because I'm like, how am I going to get to Chicago? And then I was like, then just by happenstance, I was able to get the means. And I was like, there's no way I have to go. There's just no way.
It was fate.
Yeah, it really was. It totally was.
And I can't wait for that. And I know she's going to be probably asking everybody, have you seen Ashlee?
Oh my goodness. Now I'm more like nervous than I already am, because this is kind of one of those things I've kind of imagined happening, but I didn't think it ever would. And I'm not a crier, but it might happen.
Oh my gosh.
Tears.
And I love watching people meet their heroes and then it be really emotional. I'm like a huge sucker for that, because I've experienced it myself, but I know how much that Toy has meant to you for a long time, and how we kind of have bonded over Sheila and talked about her, and how I like Sheila a lot for being such a standout character even on her own. But I can't wait for that moment, and I can't wait to see what comes out of it. And who knows, maybe, fingers crossed, there will be a partnership in the future for the both of you.
That would be incredible. So I just thank you, Diandra, for bringing me on. This was an amazing opportunity.
Oh, no problem, Ashlee. Thank you for coming on and for really opening up everyone's eyes to not only Sheila, but to the wonders of Black artists out there who are really, maybe not in the spotlight as much, but really doing something amazing. So thank you for everything that you do.
Yeah, I love this job. That's why, like I said, I want to make this something that, I could just focus on 100% of my time. That is the end game goal here. And because I love doing it so much, it's probably a part of my purpose. So I'm happy for it.
Yeah. Well, as we said, everybody, Ashlee will be at Flashback Weekend, so you can go ahead and say hello to her there. And I will be also at Flashback Weekend, that is happening not this weekend, but next weekend. And this is also the very last Elm Street Radio before Flashback. There will not be one next week, but after Flashback, we will pick up with a couple of guests. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it might be Kevin Roach from The Confession of Fred Krueger. He played Fred Krueger in that. Don't quote me on that. Because
very nice.
Yeah. So we'll stay tuned and pay attention to the Elm Street Radio Twitter, as well as the Facebook page, for everything about the upcoming episodes. And Ashlee, once again, if you want to go ahead and tell our audience where they can find you.
Oh, you can mostly find me on Twitter at Graveyard Sister. Same handle on Twitter, graveyardshiftSisters.com for weekly content. So 2 posts every week, mostly.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to this wonderful discussion with Toy and Ashlee. And again, thank you so much, Ashlee, for being our special guest this week.
Thank you, Diandra.
Treat me